Hi, welcome to the bathtub, where when you hear this sound effect, and we stop it because we just sick of listening to these guys, and then we play, and that's classical gas. We have to stop it really quick, or else we'll be sued. Then you know it's one of our special collision episodes, a collision of theme shows here at the bathtub. And if you see this All Bathtub Hall of Fame, then it kind of gives it away, doesn't it? It is the All Bathtub Hall of Fame meets classical gas, two of our most popular theme shows here at the bathtub with me. They're popular with me, and I spent a few days meaning to do this talk, and I kept thinking I had to bring the whiteboard up from the basement just so I could tick a box, and I couldn't bring myself to do it. So I just basically did this. So we don't have the whiteboard. On classical gas, we rate all these great dead writers according to yay, nay, and hell yeah. I've just given it away. The secret's out. Anton Chekhov is a hell yeah. He's got to be one of the greatest all-time writers. He's probably my favorite short story writer. It's always hard. I always hate to say that, but I can't think of a writer. Maybe Richard Yates, who's given me more pleasure as a short story writer and as a reader of short stories. So Anton Chekhov, you won the All Bathtub Hall of Fame, and you're on Classical Gas this week, so you can call your whole family and let them know out in Taganrog or wherever the hell it was that you won the special award. We've talked about this before. The Pismo Beach Prop Department came up with this beauty. We spare no expense here at the bathtub, and there's Dodo's. That's Dodo's new toy. She's on. It was for I bought it by accident online. It was for parrots. Obviously, it's 10 times too big for her, but she loves tearing it apart. So as long as she's happy, and the Pismo Beach Prop Department. We haven't really talked about these guys because they're really not. They're not very interesting. They're real complete losers. There's three guys. The three guys in Pismo Beach. They're all 39 years old, and they all live with their mother in Pismo Beach. I think they all live with the same mother. I'm not entirely sure, but I'm pretty sure they all have the same mother, and I haven't figured that out. They have no jobs, they don't have no futures, and they're technically challenged. They have no skills, technologically challenged. They don't know anything. They can't even work an ATM or a computer or anything. But look at that. They put that beautiful thing together, and they brought it up on the bus from Pismo Beach. 15 minutes. It's a 15-mile trip by bus, and it takes them 17 hours to come up here on public transport from Pismo Beach, and then they have to go right back because we won't let them in the house. They're really a drag. So anyway, we do have to thank them for this wonderful thing, and it's All Bathtub Hall of Fame. I'll try to remember to give you another look at it before we quit. And what else is so we've done that? We've given you the surprise ending, which is that he does deserve to be in the All Bathtub Hall of Fame. We talked a bit about him last week. We're also reading. I didn't really get much reading done on this one this week. We're reading a biography by Donald Rayfield. I did a little reading on it in the past 8 or 10 days since I saw you guys. And I got it on Kindle. I'm sorry, I hate to say that, but these big biographies, I can't put them anywhere, so I have to buy these online e-books. And it's a really good biography so far. I've only just got to the point where he's, he didn't do very well at school and he was constantly running around. We're filming this in the afternoon. I'm drinking. This is a rare day in the bathtub. I'm drinking water. It's purified water from the refrigerator. And cheers. And that's our imbibing that today. I'm seriously thinking of starting to drink earlier in the day. Lately, especially the past few years, every day I keep thinking maybe I should start drinking at 4, but I haven't got there yet. A long, boring way of getting to a really, really interesting and not boring book. This is one of my oldest Chekhov editions. I think I showed you some of these. This is the Penguin series. It's still my preferred reading of him as a trade paperback. And this is if I was to recommend one book, one Chekhov edition, I would probably recommend this one, edited by David Magarshack, we talked about last week, because it has like all the stories are great. There's some of my all-time favorite stories, such as A Boring Story, which is about it's about a very provincial guy who's a lecturer, and he's really just dull. He has a really boring life. Everyone finds him boring, and he wants some excitement in his life, and it's about his relationship with his. She's not a. Is she a niece or something? I forget. Some girl who comes to live with him, and she's raised in their house, and he's clearly developed an affection for her. And it's a wonderful, just a really simple story. Ward 6 is in here. Ward 6 is one of my all-time favorite novellas. It's about, a doctor out in the middle of nowhere. And like many Chekhov characters, he's very different from Dostoevsky or Tolstoy. Dostoevsky, everyone's have these big philosophical arguments, and they're battering against each other intellectually. Tolstoy himself is kind of intellectual presence and puts together these really massive, kind of brilliantly constructed novels. Chekhov's stories are about people looking for some sort of interest in their lives. He's a much different writer. He's a much more intimate writer. He never wrote anything really close to a novel. His long story, The Steppe, is probably close to a novel, but he's really, the short fiction is just that's where he belongs. And in Ward 6 is the very typical protagonist, which is a man who lives in the middle of the boring part of Russia, rural Russia, and he works in an asylum, basically, for mentally ill people. And he's just always looking for somebody to talk to, and everyone is so boring. He's just bored. He wants to talk intellectual stuff, and he finds one of the patients who's just an unhappy man who he likes to talk to. And they're basically just two unhappy guys sitting around talking about and just arguing and having intellectual discussions. This puts the doctor at odds with the community, who thinks he's insane. They start to think he's completely insane. And I don't want to tell you any more than that. Wonderful stories. One of my favorite stories, The Grasshopper's in here. This is just a beautiful, funny story about a woman who marries a guy who's kind of dull. He's a doctor, but he's a good man. He's a good man, and everyone sort of knows it except her. And she just finds him a little boring after she marries him, and she's always running around with actors. She just loves hanging around with like kind of arty bullshit and writers and actors and kind of phony intellectual types. And she's constantly treating her husband like crap. The whole story. And no matter how crappy he treats her, he's really nice. He never breaks his character at all. I mean, at one point he hasn't seen his wife in weeks, and he comes out to the country to see her in the country house. And he comes in and he said, "I'm so glad to see you." And she's with one of her boyfriends. And she said, "Listen, you got to go back because I need a special coat that I don't have here. I need you to go get my coat so when I go to this party next week, I'll look good." And he gets on the train and disappears. It's a wonderful story. I don't want to tell you the ending again because it's a beautiful ending, really a moving ending. Another one of my all-time favorite stories is in here, The Darling. Every story in this book is great. The Darling, I must have read that when I was 14 or 15 in this edition. And maybe something like it was in high school. And I've read this book many times since. And The Darling's always stuck out in my head, even though I completely forget all these stories, by the way, until I reread them. I don't know if that's a quality of Chekhov or a quality of me, but I never remember stories I loved and what happened in them. And I reread each of these stories as if I'd almost never read them before. And The Darling is about a woman who falls in love with him. She falls in love with this man, and she kind of gets so... Whenever she falls in love, she sort of takes on the attributes of the people she meets. So if the person she meets is a veterinarian, she falls in love with a veterinarian. She goes around talking about veterinarian stuff like she's a veterinarian. She just absorbs their kind of personality. And everyone calls her darling, and she calls everybody darling. And it's about basically a sequence of relationships that go bad for various reasons. I mean, basically the first two husbands die. And I don't want to tell any more about that either. But it is just, Chekhov can kind of sweep you through a person's life. He'll cover 40 years without any effort in a person's life. They're consistent, they're moving, and you've got to go live their entire lives with them in many of these 20-page stories. And The Darling is one of his best. A Lady with Lapdog, another great one. Every story in here, Agafya. Some of the stories in here that I kind of glanced over and didn't remember as well. Agafya is a terrific little story, too, about a guy who lives out I forget what he's a worker or something, and he lives out in the country and lives in a shack or something. And he's always, all the women in the village, he's very handsome, and all the women are always getting involved with him. And it's about the really horrible way he treats these people. And it's, again, another powerful, moving story. They're funny as well as moving. They sometimes have almost happy endings, but not often. I thought I'd show you this. This is The Darling and Other Stories. I think it's the first. I have never bothered to check because I don't want to know. It's part of that collected Constance Garnett series I bought in England, starting in the early 80s. It must have been when I first bought those. Cheers. And it has The Darling in it. I think possibly the first English translation of this story, with an introduction by Constance Garnett's husband, I believe it was Edward Garnett, who was also a writer and translator and a figure in the early 20th century literature in England. And he wrote some interesting stories himself. I think for The Fox and the Wife, or The Fox Wife, something. He wrote a couple of fantastic stories as well. Anyway, that's a beautiful little copy and has some of these stories in their first appearance in England, perhaps. I love it. Again, this is the one you can pick it up on eBay. Any edition of Chekhov is great. Any edition of Chekhov, you're not going to be going wrong. But I kind of want to just spend another couple of weeks reading Chekhov, but I'm probably going to have to take a break because I got a few things I've got to do. So anyway, that's it. That's all I have to say about it, except we're going to do a lot more Chekhov. I'm just going to bore your socks off with Chekhov because I just feel like reading him, and he's just, he makes you slow down and take time. And The Bathtub, you get about 20 pages. You can't put the stories down. They're really, really beautiful. Okay, so we've gone from the sublime to the ridiculous. This is my new book. It's called Reading Great Books in the Bathtub, Essays and Reviews, 2005 to 2021. The first half of the book are very autobiographical essays, and many of these essays and reviews were we discussed the same topic when the pieces came out on the Bathtub over the years. So it's kind of a home game edition of the Bathtub. If you want to play along at home, you can get this book. I'm giving free PDFs to anyone who wants it. I send it to you. It's free. You give it to anybody you want. It's just pass it around. You can give it to anybody who you think might read it. Don't give it to Pismo Beach Prop Department. They don't know what we're doing up here. But give it to anyone you want. If you want to buy a copy, I'll sell them as cheap as I can. $13, including postage. Just make contact with me, and I'll sell you a hard copy signed for $13. I guess that'll cost you to send it to you. And what else was I going to say about that book? So that's the main thing. Oh yeah, I'm going to put a link to our Facebook page below, and on the Facebook page you can email me, or you can messenger me through Facebook page, and I think I can actually send the PDF of the book on Messenger, which I didn't even know that. I had no idea until recently I figured that out. And finally, what else? One last thing. We have the International Bathtub Alliance, the International Bathing Alliance, excuse me, I don't know what I'm talking about. That's where this B.K. Smith came up with this wonderful picture. That's an illustration of the International Bathing Alliance, which is basically people all over the world come together to be part of an international community of people who sit around pointlessly reading books in bathtubs for no reason whatsoever except their personal pleasure. And if you join, it costs you nothing. It's worth nothing. I put your name on a map. That's basically, I put your name on a Google map, and you can show it to your friends and family and stuff like that. I do have a certificate. I keep forgetting this, that I use from BK's picture, where we have a certificate. I can email you that, and you can print it off, and you can stick it on your wall or something like that. So that's possible. So all you need to do if you want to be in the International Bathing Alliance, you just have to write me and tell me where. Give me some sort of name I can give and put on the map, and give me a location. We have people from all over the world, from Australia and Korea and China. We're really excited about all this kind of international people all over the world doing something useless instead of all the useful things they do that destroy the world. All this destructive usefulness that's been going on for centuries. They just do nothing. They sit in the bathtub and read books. You can be part of that. It's easy to join. And Dodo thinks you should join. Dodo, do you think I should join? Dodo, should they join? Yeah, she doesn't care. Okay, happy bathing. And again, it's free. I'll put a link below.